Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the tavern. It's so good to see you all. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Is Matty out here breaking people's switches again? What do you do? Somebody get Matty a proper spanking. Oh, I need to get tune on the right one, Matty. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Elio said, okay, cauldron of bones brewing on the stove, tea is steeping. Fish is covered in his hospital bed, and now I'm going to eat supper with my 5% battery. Sounds like you're having a hell of a day. Hi, hello, Soft, good to see you, welcome in. Hello, 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 everyone. It's wonderful to see you all. Particularly wonderful because we're starting a new book today, and that's always fun. I will be honest, I am worn out today. I don't know exactly why. I woke up tired. Don't you hate when that happens? You wake up, you feel like you slept, but for some reason you're tired as soon as you're awake. Officially finished chapter 27 today. Making good progress there, Matty. I had to download an entirely different browser to get Twitch to work on my PC. Sounds like Matty broke something. It's actually been an amazingly productive day. Very good. Glad to hear it. Those are the kind of days we like to have. Everything's getting done. Everybody's happy. Those are the days we enjoy. Obviously, we know they can't be every day, but the days that we do get them... That was me yesterday. Yeah, it doesn't happen to me often, but for some reason today... You did indeed, Tim. I enjoyed it. And thank you for the super chat. Enjoy your breed's blessing there, brother. You did, and I do believe I responded. I don't know if I did for sure, but I believe I responded to it. What was that one? Destiny for 55 months. Whew. You're a grandma of the community, you are. Tyson, guten Abend, mein Freundin. Wie geht's? Nix, mein Freund. Ich bin müde. I'm alright. I'm just a little bit tired, as it were. I keep saying bad behavior shouldn't be rewarded, no spanking for Matty. That's true, that's fair. It's not my fault the goblins picked romance in the convo options. That is a hot minute. It is a hot minute. You've watched... Hey, it's a nice stream. Hey, it's a live stream. Nice. Yes, Brian. Hello and welcome in. Every once in a while, I read you all a bedtime story. Tonight, we're actually on a fresh book. Brand new. Yes, indeed. It's good music. I don't know if I'd heard it before, but it was not immediately familiar, so I appreciate you. So we're starting on a brand new book. This is it's still smell it. It's got that fresh. See it? Smell. It's got that new book smell. Oh. Hey, and got your comment I posted. Thank you, of course. Welcome in. For everyone who is new, I am Castle. This is my tavern, and here we talk about myth and lore and tales of yore, and every now and again I read you all a bedtime story. Tonight we are reading A Darkness in Sethanon by Raymond E. Feist. It is brand new, and it really does. It smells delicious. It's a brand new, fresh book. This is the first new book actually we've bought in a while. Normally we rescue books, but this mass market paperback for the book was on sale, and I wanted to get it quickly, so I got it off of Amazon, and I'm excited about it. It's from Vikings Valhalla on Netflix, the sequel series to History Channel's Vikings. Oh, interesting, Tim. I didn't finish Vikings, and I've never watched Vikings Valhalla, but the music was good. Oh, excellent, Matty. I look forward to seeing how you do it. Did someone say Matty is the Goblin King? David Bowie, he is. That's true. He is no David Bowie. Won't be chatting much. I'm on my way home. Then I'll get on Twitch. All right, Tyson. Just drive safe, If you're driving, drive safe, brother. Yeah, it's a very exciting day. Now, I'm kind of wondering where we should start from. Because we have... But we can do a synopsis. There's a whole synopsis here in the beginning. So we can read the synopsis, and then there is a prologue. The prologue is actually, it's named Book 4, Macross's Redux, which is interesting. Lo, death has reared himself a throne in a strange city. Po, the city in the sea. Herring, hello, my friend. Welcome in. Take your time, Kayla. I'm going to give everybody a little bit to trickle in since we're starting a brand new book. It's from Trevor Morris, a great composer. He also worked with the champ of cinema composers, Hans Zimmerman. It is very good. I really like very sort of cinematically Celtic or cinematically Scandinavian music. It feels very big, but it also feels sort of comforting in a way. If you could choose for yourself a magic sword from any series, universe, which would you choose and which would be the best choice? Herring, that's a wonderful question. We'll use that question. So, I was actually going to run ads, but I don't think Herring has a subscription. I'm going to run ads real quick so we get an hour without them over on Twitch, and then I'll answer your question, Herring. Still mad. Glad John is here. I need to unwind. Still mad, Wesley? Well, I'm glad that you made it in. And we're starting a brand new book, so you're actually going to get to be with this one from the start. It's a fresh right off the press. Christy, hello, welcome in, good to see you. Grab your seat, settle in. We're waiting for everyone to trickle in because we're on a brand new book today. And then once we've got most of the regulars in, we're going to start. I'll read the story synopsis so far so that everybody who is new will know where we are. And we will then probably do the first chapter, I think. We'll do the prologue, and we might get through the first chapter before the end. Let's see. Oh, they're very long chapters. I think we can do it. Since you, Destiny, and Kai that video. Oh, is it the one that you just recently... All right, I'll watch that and let you know afterwards, Wesley. Because I haven't watched what you sent me yet. I spend very little time actually on social media these days. Most of what I'm on is I'm responding to comments and messages, and then that's really it. It's one of the reasons why I don't follow anybody on social media. I get people all the time who ask me why I don't follow anyone. It's because I don't consume that much content. I usually watch what you send me. I mean, there was a point where I had like 97 TikToks from you, and I had to go back and watch all of them. But I don't often spend any amount of time on the different social media apps. But when I do, it's usually responding to comments and checking messages. Yeah, 97. But sometimes I go a very long time without checking my messages. So it's like who knows how long, over what course of time that is. will really send stuff now, knowing your MO for on me. Yeah, I barely ever check anything, and sometimes I'll forget to check my messages for weeks and weeks at a time, and I'll have messages from people who wanted to talk to me very quickly, and I'm so busy making the things that I forget I forget that it's even possible that people would want to message me. Yeah, well, I don't ever check my notifications. Thank you, Herring. I appreciate you. I don't ever check my notifications either, though, Matty. Like all of my notifications here, I can probably show you guys. Let's see. This is my Facebook app. You see there at the top? It's 99. I don't ever click on that tab. I don't ever click on the. You can see here at the bottom on TikTok. 99. I don't ever click on that because I only respond to the comments of the last like 4 videos that I'm in, and I don't worry about it beyond that. Because I get so many notifications that if I was constantly scrolling through notifications, it's what I would do all day. So I focus on whatever is new, and then if I get time, I'll go back and I'll check older stuff, but I rarely ever get time. Yeah. Duncan, hello, my friend. Good to see you. We're getting ready to start a new book. Okay, so Herring, your question was... Herring had asked a very intriguing question. Said, if you could choose for yourself a magic sword from any series or universe, which would you choose and which would be the best choice? Personally, I would probably choose the Flame of the West. Because I love me Andoril and Narsil. That's probably my favorite fantasy sword. One, because it is one of the most accurately depicted, it's one of the most well-designed swords from Lord of the Rings. I probably do need a social media manager at some point, Destiny. I get so many messages and comments that I can't keep up with all of them. And I know some people get upset when I don't respond to them, but I also get so many people who are either just trolling or saying things that is completely irrelevant. That a lot of times, I don't even want to go back and read some of the comments because I'm like, this is dumb. I don't have time for this. I don't have time to have these. I had a guy earlier today say something about me needing to perform a certain adult act more because I spend too much time talking about lore. And I am like, this is ridiculous. I'm not even going to. Yeah, isn't Ned Stark's bastard sword, isn't it ice or something? Is it called ice? I don't remember exactly what Ned Stark's sword. It's a nice sword. The most accurate sword that I've ever seen in media is Anduril, Eragon's sword from Lord of the Rings. So that one, if I could pick a sword, that's the sword I would pick. But if I was going to pick any sword from, what would be the best sword to pick, it would probably be He-Man's sword. He-Man's sword would probably be the best sword you could get. I send you random things occasionally in comments sporadically. Yeah, and if I recognize the names, I try to respond to regulars first. If you are a regular in a comment or in a message, and I see that I've been sent something, I try to respond to you guys first, because I know that you're always here, and that if you're commenting or you're asking something, then you know, there's a very good reason why you're doing that, and I want to make sure that I get to it. And I try to respond to questions and positive comments first, and what if it's people saying dumb things or being negative, usually I'll try to ignore them. Sometimes, if they're being particularly childish, I'll respond very sarcastically. But for the most part, I try to focus on you guys first, and then I'll respond to other things as well. But was Valerian steel but huge, Damascus-ish? Yeah, and Ned Stark's sword is a beautiful sword, but it's an unwieldable sword for most people. You'd have to be a very big bastard to wield that sword. Yeah, you guys are all super special. Myself, maybe the Master Sword, or possibly the possible swords from Zelda. Luke's lightsaber, maybe. Tell him your friend Weasley goons enough for you. Oh, your friend Wesley, sorry. I almost called you Weasley again. Just something to retort. I would take a... Yeah, Ned Stark's sword is beautiful, but most people could not wield that sword. I do like you guys. More than most. The Space Marine swords, again, are really cool, but I don't know that I could... That I would recommend anybody take a Space Marine sword, because they wouldn't actually work in real life. Maybe if you had the laws of that universe and their physics, then maybe it might be worthwhile to do. But in our world, those swords would not work. Excalibur is a great sword. Excalibur is a great sword. If I wanted to be king of England, I would take Excalibur. If I wanted to be king of the Britons, I'd take Excalibur. Britain's not looking too hot right now, though. I don't know that I would want to take Britain at the moment. Thank you for breaking up my double shift, Castle and Lady. Of course, Kristen. I don't know if I said hello. I saw your name and in my brain I said hello. But I don't know that I actually did. I mean, I would take a Space Marine. It would take a Space Marine to throw around Ned's sword. Yeah, you would. Yeah, that too, Duncan. The Keyblade... See, my problem with the Keyblade is how it's wielded. I don't know how many of you have ever played these games, but the Keyblade from... But now my brain's not working. My brain keeps wanting to say Soul Calibur. I know that's not right. Kingdom Hearts. That's all right, Kai. Welcome back, love. The Keyblade from Kingdom Hearts. You don't wield it with the key forward like an axe. It's wielded the other way with the pole side. Which is weird to me. Like, if it was wielded sort of like an axe, that would make more sense. Bear, you said I call my walking stick Excalibur. The Keyblade is BS magic, but if it works, like if whatever sword you're getting actually works, it's worthwhile to take it, right? Dude, Emo Kids got Kingdom Hearts 2 and Black Parade in the same year, and I've been chasing that high ever since. It's probably more true than any of us would want to admit. Herring. Oh, can you? Oh, yeah. I'm a little bit see-through. See, it's because I'm a waft of myself today. Hey, look, it's Kayla. Hello, love. Good to see you. I got new meds again. That could be good or bad. Hopefully good. Yeah, all the glitters is not castle, right? Alright, I think we got enough of everybody in. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to start off with the synopsis, and then we'll go into the prologue, and then after the prologue, we're going to try and make it all the way through Chapter 1, and that's going to be story time for today. We have Kayla's and McKayla's all in stock, yes we do. Oh, I placed my order. I get French gluten-free goodies tomorrow. Yum. Well, maybe yum. Gluten-free treats are kind of hit or miss. Sometimes they're made really well, and they can be really good. Other times it's like you're just eating a block of something. But hopefully they're good. You have my axe in the quest for it to be good. Or my horn, I guess. I don't have an axe here with me. Yeah. You have us behind you hoping that it's good. Alright, here we go. Our story so far. After the Rift War against the Surani, alien invaders from the world of Calawan, peace reigned in the Kingdom of the Isles for nearly a year. King Liam and his brothers, Prince Arutha and Duke Martin, toured the eastern cities and neighboring kingdoms, and then returned to Liam's capital at Rillanon. The Princess, Carline, their sister, gave an ultimatum to her lover, Laurie, the minstrel: wed her or leave the palace. Arutha and Prince Anita became engaged, and plans were made for their wedding in Krondor, Arutha's city. When Arutha finally returned to Crondor, late one night, Jimmy the Hand, a boy thief, stumbled across a foiled a Nighthawk, an assassin, whose target was Arutha. It was a standing order among the mockers that all news of the Nighthawks was to be reported at once. Jimmy became confused about where his loyalties lay, with the mockers, the Guild of Thieves, or with Arutha, whom he had known the year before. Before he could decide, Jimmy was set up for murder by Laughing Jack, an officer of the mockers. Proof Jack was in league with the Nighthawks. During the ambush, Jimmy was wounded and Laughing Jack killed. Jimmy then decided to warn Arutha. Warned of the plot, Arutha, Laurie, and Jimmy trapped two assassins and imprisoned them in the palace. Arutha discovered the Nighthawks were somehow connected to the temple of the Death Goddess, Limbs Kragma. He ordered the High Priestess to attend him, but by the time she arrived, one of the assassins had died and the other was dying. She sought to discover how her temple had been infiltrated by the Nighthawks. Upon dying, one of the captured Nighthawks was revealed as a magically disguised Moridel, a dark elf. And now the dead creature rose up and called upon his master, Mermandamus, and attacked the High Priestess and Arutha. Only the magic intervention of Arutha's advisor, Father Nathan, balked the otherwise unkillable creature. When the High Priestess and Father Nathan recovered from their ordeal, they warned Arutha that dark and alien powers sought his death. Arutha was troubled over the safety of his brother the king and the others who would attend Arutha's forthcoming wedding, especially his beloved Anita. Deciding upon a quick solution, rather than further magic investigation, Arutha empowered Jimmy to arrange a meeting for him with the Upright Man, the mysterious head of the mockers. In darkness, Arutha met one who claimed to speak with the voice of the Upright Man, though it was never made clear to the prince that the speaker was himself the leader of the thieves. They came to an understanding on the need to rid the city of the Nighthawks, and in the bargain, Jimmy was given into Arutha's service as a squire of the prince's court. Jimmy had broken oath with the mockers, and his career as a thief was over. Later, the Upright Man sent word of the location of the Nighthawks. Arutha and a company of trusted soldiers had raided the Nighthawks' headquarters, the basement of the most expensive brothel in the city. Every assassin was killed or committed suicide, and finding the body of Gold Days, a thief and false friend to Jimmy, revealed that the Nighthawks had indeed infiltrated the mockers. Then the dead assassins rose up, again by some dark power, and only by burning the entire building were they destroyed. At the palace, Arutha decided the immediate danger was over, and life returned to a semblance of normalcy. The king, the ambassador of Great Kesh, and other dignitaries arrived at the palace, and Jimmy caught a glimpse of Laughing Jack in the crowd. Jimmy was shocked, for he had been certain the false thief had died. Arutha alerted his most trusted advisors of the danger and learned strange things were occurring in the north. It was decided there was a connection between those events and the assassins. Jimmy arrived with news that the palace was honeycombed with secret passages and his fear that he had seen Jack. Arutha decided upon a course of action, taking care to guard the palace, but determined to proceed with the wedding. The wedding became a gathering point for all those who had been separated since the Rift War. In addition to the royal party, Pug, the magician from Stardock, site of the Academy of Magicians, he was the one-time resident of Cryde, home to the king and his family. Colgan, his old teacher, attended along with Vandros, the Duke of Yabon, and Kasumi, the former Suronic commander, now Earl of Lamut. With King Liam came Father Tolly, another of Arutha's boyhood teachers, now an advisor to the king. Just before the wedding, Jimmy discovered that a window had been tampered with, and Laughing Jack had secreted into a cupola overlooking the hall. Jack overpowered the boy and bound him, When the wedding started, Jimmy managed to foil Jack's attempt at killing Arutha by wiggling forward and kicking Jack, and they both fell. They were saved by Pug's magic, but after he had been cut loose, Jimmy discovered Jack's crossbow bolt had struck Anita. After examining the wounded Anita, Father Nathan, in conference with Father Tooley, announced that the bolt had been poisoned and the princess was dying. Jack was questioned and revealed the truth behind the Nighthawks. He had been saved from death by a strange power named Mermandamus. In return for killing Arutha, all he knew of the poison was that it was called Silverthorn. With that, he died. As Anita neared death, Colgan the magician remembered that a large library existed at the Ashapian Abbey of Sarth, a town up the coast of the Bitter Sea. Pug and Father Nathan used their magic to suspend Anita in time until a cure could be found. Arutha vowed to travel to Sarth, and after an elaborate ruse to confuse possible spies, Arutha, Laurie, Jimmy, Martin, and Gardon, captain of the prince's royal household guard, journeyed north. In the forest south of Sarth, they were attacked by black-armored Moradel riders under the command of a Moradel recognized by Laurie as a chieftain from the Yabon mountain clans. Pursuing Arutha's party to the abbey at Sarth, the Moradel were repulsed by the magic of Brother Dominic, an Ashapian monk. The agents of Mermandamus attacked twice more at the abbey, almost bringing the death of Brother Micah, revealed to be the former Duke of Krondor, Lord Dulanic. Father John, the abbot, explained to Arutha that there was a prophecy regarding the return of the power of Moradel, once the Lord of the West was dead. One of Mermandamus's agents had called Arutha that, so it seemed the Moradel believed that the prophecy might be approaching fruition. At Sarth, Arutha also discovered that Silverthorn was a corruption of an elven word, so he decided to journey on to Elfendar and court the Elf Queen. Gardon and Dominic were ordered by Arutha and the abbot to travel to Stardor to carry the latest news to Pug and the other magicians there. In youth, they encountered Rold, a mercenary and boyhood friend of Laurie, and Baru, the Hadati hillman from the northern Yabon. Baru was seeking the strange Moradel chieftain called Marad. Wishing to avenge Marad's destruction on Baru's village, both agreed to continue on with Arutha. Darth Nexus, my friend, hello, welcome in. Thank you for the heart me and for the Go Populous and for the teeny teenies, which you've achieved the Dini goal for the day. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the tips to the Tavern Keeper, my friend. And welcome in, grab your seat. Rookie, hello, welcome in, grab a seat. You'll forgive me for not addressing you right away when you come in. Obviously, my head was down. KO went bed. Time available. Says I need to put my coat hooks up. I'm dying of a nerd-out attack, self-induced. These things will happen. Maddie. Have I missed anything important, friends? Anything that I need to address? I want to make sure that I'm getting to everybody's comments. I don't want to miss anything. Alright. Oh, and the butterbeer, yes. Fill a glass and settle in. Esther is here. Well, hello, Esther. Guys, forgive me. What is tonight's reading? Tonight we are reading the next book in the Rift War saga, which is A Darkness in Sethanon. This is the sequel to the Magician series. This is the fourth book in the series. Right now I'm reading the synopsis of the previous story. So this is a synopsis of what happened in Silverthorn, which is the book we just finished. I've also snuck in as another iteration to Duncan. Alright, my friend. She just changed her name. I see. Outsider Ghost Esther. Good Good evening, Castle. Elsie and I hope you're faring well. Good evening, Outsider Ghost Esther. Hello. So very glad that you could join us. You guys gotta be careful when you're changing your names. I might not recognize you. I need food, not eat it in hours. Well, go eat, Wesley. Yeah, it's very nice they included a synopsis, and it's a very concise one as well. It's not wasting a whole lot of time. I had to restart Twitch. Well, I am very glad that you made it in, Esther. Make sure you grab your seat, you and Elsie. Fill your normal seats, and we will woo you with story time. Where was I? In Elvendar. Oh, no. Where was I? At Stardock, Dominic and Gardon were attacked by flying elemental creatures, servants of Myrmandamus, and were saved by Pug. Dominic met the magician Colgan and Katala, Pug's wife, as well as William, Pug's son, and Fantis the Fire Drake. Pug listened to what they reported and asked the other magic users at Stardock for help. The blind seer, Rogan, had a vision of some dread power behind Myrmandamus, which then attacked the old man across time and against probability in defiance of all. In defiance of all, Pug understood of magic. A mute girl, Gamina, Rogan's ward, shared the vision, and her mental screaming overwhelmed Pug and his companions. Rogan survived the ordeal, and Gamina used her telepathic ability to recreate the vision for Pug and the others. They saw the city's destruction, and the terrible thing in the vision spoke in the ancient Surani tongue. Pug and the others who spoke the language were stunned at hearing this nearly forgotten temple language of Kalawal. That's alright, Esther. That's alright. You included Esther, so it shouldn't be too hard. Okay, putting stream on TV, my phone isn't charging. I'll try not to be too loud if you're putting me up on the TV. Ritty Reads, hello! Welcome and thank you for the heart, mate. Tips to the tavern keeper, always appreciated. Where was I? In Elvandar, Ruther and his company met the Gwali, gentle ape-like creatures who were visiting the elves. The elves told of strange encounters with Moradale trackers near the northern borders of the elven forest. Ruther explained his mission and was told of Silverthorn by Tathar, advisor to the Queen Aglarana and Tomas, the prince consort and inheritor of the ancient power of the Valheru, the Dragon Lords. Silverthorn grew in one place, on the shores of the Black Lake, Moralain, a place of dark powers. Tathar warned Ruther that it would be a dangerous journey, but Ruther vowed to continue. At Stardock, Pug determined that what menaced the kingdom was of Suvrani origin. Somehow, Kelawon and Midkemia again seemed to have their fates intertwined. The only possible source of knowledge about this threat would be the assembly of magicians upon Kelawon. Thought to be forever closed off to them, Pug revealed to Kogan and the others that he had found a means of returning to Kelawon. Over their objections, he decided to go back and see what he might do to gain knowledge. Once it was decided, both Meacham, the forester, Kogan's companion for years, and Dominic forced Pug to take them alone. Pug established a rift between the two worlds, and the three passed through. Back in the empire of the Suranuani, Pug and his friends spoke first with Ntoa, Pug's old estate manager, then with Kamatsu, lord of the Shinzawi, Kasumi's father. The empire was in turmoil, on the verge of an open break between warlord and emperor, but Kamatsu vowed to carry Pug's warning of his alien terror to the High Council. For Pug was convinced that should Midkemia fall, Kalawon would follow. Pug was met by his old friend Hochopepa, a fellow magician, a great one of the empire. Hochopepa agreed to plead Pug's case before the assembly, for Pug had been named a traitor by the empire and was under sentence of death. But before he could depart, they were assaulted magically and captured by the warlord's men. Arutha and his party reached the Black Lake, Moralain, Avoiding a number of Moradel patrols and sentries, Galain, the elf, was sent by Tomas to carry news of other possible entrances to Moralaine. He told Arutha he would accompany them to the edge of the tracks of hopelessness. The canyons surrounding the plateau where Moralaine lay. Arutha and his company made their way to the Black Lake and discovered a strange black building, which they took to be a Valheru edifice. The search for Silverthorn was fruitless, and Arutha and the others spent their night in a cave below the surface of the plateau, where they decided they must enter the building. Pug and his companions awoke in a cell and found their magic blocked by an enchantment. Pug was questioned by the warlord and his two magician aides, the brothers, Egoron and Elgahar, about his purpose in returning to the Empire. The warlord was convinced that it had to do with political opposition to his plans to take control of the Empire from the Emperor. Neither he nor Ergoran believed Pug's story of a strange power of Surani origin menacing Midkemia. Elgahar later came to Pug's cell to discuss the matter further, and said he would consider Pug's warning. Before he left, he whispered a speculation to Pug, which Pug agreed was possible. Hochapeppa asked Pug what the speculation was, but Pug refused to discuss it. Later, Pug, Meacham, and Dominic were put to torture. After Dominic entered a trance to block the plane, and Meacham was rendered senseless, Pug was tortured. The pain in his resistance to the magic blocking his own caused Pug to succeed in using magic of the lesser path, something thought impossible heretofore. He freed himself and his companions as the Emperor arrived with the Lord of the Shinzawi. The warlord was executed for treason, and Pug was granted permission to conduct his research in the assembly. Elgahar was instrumental in freeing Pug, and when asked why, revealed the speculation he shared with Pug. Both believed the enemy, the ancient terror that drove the nations to Kelawon at the time of the Chaos War, had returned. At the assembly, Pug discovered a reference to strange beings living in the polar ice, the Watchers. He parted company with his friends and left to seek the Watchers, while Hochapeppa, Elgahar, and Dominic and Meacham returned to Midkemia and the Academy. While hiding, Jimmy overheard some conversation between the Moradel and two human renegades, which gave him a clue something was not right about the Black Building. Jimmy convinced Arutha he should explore alone, as he was less likely to fall prey to any trap or ambush. Jimmy entered the strange Black Building and discovered what looked to be Silverthorn. But too many things about the place rang false. Jimmy returned to the cave with news that the building was one giant trap. Further exploration revealed the cave to be a part of a large underground Valheru abode, nearly unrecognizable after ages of erosion. Jimmy then determined that Silverthorn must be underwater, as the elves had stated it grew close to the edge of the water, and the rainfall that year had been heavy. That night they found the plant and began their flight. Jimmy was injured and the party slowed. They eluded the Moradel sentries, but were forced to kill one, alerting Murad, who later forced to set to capture. Near the edge of the elven forest, the exhausted party was forced to halt. Galain ran ahead, seeking his kinsman, Callan, and the other elven warriors. The first band of Moradel overtook Arutha and was beaten back, but then Murad arrived, with his larger force, including Black Slayers. Baru challenged Murad to single combat, and then the strange honor code of the Moradel forced him to accept. Baru killed Murad, cutting his heart out at the end to end the risk of his returning from the dead. Baru was cut down by the Moradel before he could return to his companions, and the battle was rejoined. As the prince's party was nearly overwhelmed, the elves arrived and drove off the Moradel. Baru was found to be barely alive, and the elves carried the prince and his party to the safety of Elvendar. The Black Slayers returned to life and pursued the elves to the edge of Elvendar, where Tomas arrived with the Spellweavers and destroyed the Black Slayers. At a celebration that night, Arutha learned that Baru would live. After a long convalescence, Arutha and Martin considered the end of their quest both knowing the battle was only part of a larger conflict, whose final outcome had not yet been decided. Pug reached the northern edges of the Empire, leaving his Huroni guards, and set off for the Thun-Hill tundra. The strange centaur-like creatures who called themselves Lasura sent an old warrior to converse with Pug. The creature revealed the existence of the dwellers in the ice and ran off, declaring Pug mad. Pug at last reached the glacier, where he was met by a cowled being. The watcher who greeted Pug took him down below the ice cap, where a fabulous magic forest existed. It was called Elvardain, and was a twin to Elvandar. Pug discovered the watchers to be elves, long vanished Eldar, or Elder Elves. Pug was to stay with him for a year to learn arts beyond those he had already at his command. Arutha reached Krondor safely with a cure for Anita. She was revived and plans were made to finish the wedding. Carline insisted Lori and she also get married at once. For the time being, the palace at Krondor was a scene of joy and happiness. Peace returned to the Kingdom of the Isles for almost a year. BRB, kids are screaming but should be sleeping. Well, that's never good. Frost, my friend, hello, welcome in. Yeah, the two of them met through a D&D game of all things. Oh, another one you all should try is called Dragon Palace. Y'all up for Chinese food is amazing. And I happily admit it, it's a beautiful story. Good evening, Frost. I hope you're feeling well, my friend. I'm hoping my wife will put Lucky Charms on my ice cream. Thank you for the confetti, Ritty. I appreciate you for that. Thank you, Bear, for the drink. Appreciate you, brother. Aaron, hello. Alright, friends. So that is where we are in the story. And now we have a prologue. And it is called, so we're on book 4 of the series, and the prologue is called Macross Redux. And the quote underneath it is, "Lo, death has reared himself a throne in a strange city." And it's from Poe, The City in the Sea, which is fascinating. But Macross Redux, Macross is the Black Wizard from the previous books, who is this insane, all-powerful planeswalker who can travel across all universes and seems to have unlimited power and unlimited knowledge of everything in all of the things. So it is a fascinating point. But the prologue is not terribly long. We're looking at roughly 5 pages. So we'll go through the prologue, and then maybe we'll take a break there. And then when I come back, we'll do chapter 1. And chapter 1 is about 20 pages, so that should get us all the way to the end of Storytime, I think. Yeah, chapter 1 is 20 pages. I'm here and an anonymous viewer as well because I wouldn't log in. Alright. It is interesting to think about all the people we meet We know, but don't know we know. The world is so ridiculously connected, yet so disconnected. It's crazy to think about. Like we have so many people who watch stories in the tavern all the time that the number is sort of unimaginable. And it's not even that we have, because there are some people who have like 100 million people who follow them and who watch their things. We're not even near that. But for me, the idea that we have tens of thousands of people, like I can't even imagine tens of thousands of people in a room or in the same area, but tens of thousands of people who come through the tavern and enjoy stories or don't enjoy stories. Some of them very clearly don't enjoy stories, but most people come through and they very much enjoy the stories. And it's just fascinating to think about. I mentioned maybe seeing Destiny in STL and never knowing. Oh, interesting. Yeah, that would be interesting indeed. STL is St. Louis, yeah? Am I remembering that correctly? Good old St. Louis. Okay. I'm terrible with abbreviations. I don't even know I don't know the abbreviations from back home in Ireland. I don't know the abbreviations from here in the States. I get confused about it all the time. It's one of the things that for some reason I've never prioritized and my brain doesn't want to remember. Also, I'm just wowed that by how I wrote chapter 27, just multiple threads connected now, especially buried breeds and fires. If I go missing, I've been kidnapped by Destiny. There are worse places to end up. There are worse places to end up. I'd say you'd be fairly well off in that one. Mary Beth, hello! Good to see you. Welcome in. I missed your comment when you came in, but hello. I'm glad you made it. Alright. Alright, we're going to begin the prologue, friends. Castle, as an outsider ghost, we are always disconnected, and then we connect and float around. I've never really been an outsider ghost, so I wouldn't know. I'll have to take your word for it. I don't know if I've ever been an insider, though, either. I've always kind of just done my own thing. I'm sociable when I need to be, but I've also never been someone who sought out for people to be near. It's weird. I don't know. I don't know what I would be. Goliath, thank you for the follow over on Twitch. Welcome to the tavern, my friend. I am Castle. This is my tavern, and here we talk about myth and lore and tales of yore, and every now and again, I read you all a bedtime story. Tonight we are reading A Darkness in Sethanon from Raymond E. Feist. This is the fourth book in a series that we've read all the way through over the course of the last year. But here you have stumbled through portals into a tavern at the end of the world, where all stories eventually come to rest. And you found your way here because you sought a story. So grab a seat, fill a glass, because it is indeed story time. Keep an eye out for David. Well, it's okay, we don't allow weapons into the tavern. You have to leave them at the door. We don't want any duels in the middle. Ghost here loves Castle's story. You would be the second ghost that loves all of the stories in the tavern, because the other one is Calamitous, though he rarely ever talks when he's in here. He's much more ghostly. David is... That's true, David is over on YouTube. Though we usually call David Duncan. But yeah, David is over on YouTube. And he's on Facebook, so Goliath, don't go to Facebook or YouTube portals, or else you'll end up in an encounter with David. Speaking of, where is Calamitous? He's usually in here, sometimes he's not, but Calamitous is almost always lurking. Yeah, Calamitous is almost always in here, but usually... Which is still not my name, ever. Wesley, you're not even using the proper spelling of John or Johnny to what my name is spelled like. So you're quite literally the only, and you are actually the only person on the planet who calls me John. And most definitely the only person on the planet that calls me Johnny. Actually, I don't talk. You don't talk much, Esther, but you are more interactive than Calamitous is. Calamitous will pop in like once every. The Furious David Viking, yes indeed. Calamitous will pop in like once every 3 or 4 story times and say something. Lever Johnny Lever. Alright, let's get this prologue out of the way, friends. The prologue. Dark Wind. The wind came from nowhere, ringing into existence with the reverberation of a hammer striking down. It carried the heat of a forge that fashioned hot war and searing death. It came into being in the heart of a lost land, emerging from strange place between that which is and that which seeks to be. It blew from the south, where snakes walked upright and spoke ancient words. Angry, it stank of ancient evil, echoing with long-forgotten prophecies. In a frenzy of wind spun, swirling out of the void, seeking a course, then it paused, then it blew northward. The old nurse hummed a simple tune, one handed down from mother to daughter for generations. While she sewed, she paused and glanced up from her needlework. Her 2 small charges lay sleeping, tiny faces serene while they dreamed their tiny dreams. Occasionally, fingers would flex or lips would purse in sucking motions, then one or the other would return to quiescence. They were beautiful babies and would grow to be handsome lads. Of this the nurse was certain. As men, they would have only vague memories of the woman who sat with them this night. But for now, they belonged as much to her as to their mother, who sat with her husband presiding over a state dinner. Then through the window a strange wind came, chilling her despite its heat. It carried a hint of alien and distorted dissonance in its sound, an evil tune barely perceived. The nurse shivered and looked towards the boys. They became restless, as if ready to wake crying. The nurse hurried to the window and closed the shutters, blocking out the strange and disquieting night air. For a moment it seemed old time held its breath. Then, as if with a slight sigh, the breeze died away and the night was calm again. The nurse tightened her shawl about her shoulders and the baby stood fitfully for another moment, before lapsing into a deep and quiet sleep. In another room nearby, a young man worked over a list, struggling to put aside personal likes and dislikes as he decided who was to serve at a minor function the next day. It was a task he hated, but he did it well. Then the wind made the window curtains blow inward. Without thinking, the youngster was half out of his chair in a crouch, a dirk seeming to fly from his boots, top to his hand, as a street-born sense of wariness signaled danger. Poised to fight, he stood with heart pounding for a long moment, as certain of a death struggle as he'd ever been in his conflict-torn life. Seeing no one there, the young man slowly relaxed. The moment was lost. He shook his head in perplexity. An odd queasiness settled in the pit of his stomach as he slowly crossed to the window. For long, slowly passing minutes he gazed towards the north, into the night, where he knew the great mountains lay and beyond, where an enemy of dark aspect waited. The young man's eyes narrowed, and he stared into the gloom, as if seeking to catch a glimpse of some danger lurking out there. Then, as the last of the rage and fear fled, he returned to his task. But throughout the balance of the night, he occasionally turned to look out the window. Out in the city, a group of revelers made their way through the streets, seeking another inn and more merry companions. The wind blew past them, and they halted a moment, exchanging glasses. One The seasoned mercenary began to walk again, then halted, considering something. With a sudden loss of interest and celebration, he bade his companions good night and returned to the palace where he had guested for almost a year. The wind blew out to sea where his ship raced towards its home port after a long patrol. The captain, a tall old man with a scarred face and a white eye, paused as he was touched by the freshening wind. He was about to call for the sheets to be shortened when the strange chill passed through him. He looked over to his first mate, a pock-faced man who had been by his side for years. They exchanged glances, then the wind passed. The captain paused, gave the order to send men aloft, and, after another silent moment, shouted for extra lanterns to be lit against the sudden oppressive gloom. Farther to the north, the wind blew through the streets of the city, creating angry little dust swirls that danced a mad caper across the cobbles, skittering along like demented jesters. Within the city, men from another world lived beside men born there. In the soldiers' commons of the garrison, a man from that other world wrestled, one raised within a mile of where the match was taking place. With heavy wagering among those who watched, each man had taken one fall, and the third would decide the winner. The wind suddenly struck, and the two opponents paused, looking about. The dust-stung eyes and several seasoned veterans suppressed shudders. Without words, the two opponents quit the match, and those who had placed wagers picked up their bets without protest. Silently, those in the commons returned to their quarters, and the first move of the contest, having fled before the bitter wind. The wind swept northward until it struck a forest, where little ape-like beings, gentle and shy, huddled in the branches, seeking a warmth that only the close physical contact can provide. Below, on the floor of the forest, a man sat in meditative pose. His legs were crossed, and he rested his back of his wrists upon his knees, thumbs and forefingers forming a circle that represent the wheel of life, to which all creatures are bound. His eyes snapped open at the first caress of the darkling wind, and he regarded the being who sat facing him. An old elf, showing but faint signs of age native to his race, contemplated the human for a moment. Seeing the unspoken question, he nodded his head slightly. The human picked up the two weapons that lay at his side, a long sword and half-sword he placed in his belt sash. With only a gesture, he farewell he was off, moving through the trees of the forest as he began his journey to the sea. There he would seek out another man, one who also counted friend to the elves, and prepare for a final confrontation that would soon begin. As the warrior made his way towards the ocean, the leaves rustled in the branches over his head. In another forest, leaves also trembled, in sympathy with those troubled by the passing dark wind. Across an enormous gulf of stars around a greenish-yellow sun spun a hot planet. Upon that world, below the cap of ice, at the North Pole lay a forest twin to that left behind by the traveling warrior. Deep within that second forest sat a circle of beings steeped in timeless lore. They wove magic. A soft, warm glow of faint light formed a sphere about them, as each sat upon the bare earth, richly colored robes emblemished by stain of soil. All eyes were closed, but each saw what he or she needed to see. One, ancient beyond the memory of others, sat above the circle, suspended in the air by the strength of the spell they all wove together. His white hair hung below his shoulders, held back by a simple wire of copper sect, with a single jade stone upon his forehead. His palms were held up and forward, and his eyes were fixed upon another, a black-robed human, who floated opposite him. The other rode the currents of arcane energy, forming a matrix about him, sending his consciousness along those lines, mastering this alien magic. The black-robed one sat in a mirror pose as his hands held palm out, but his eyes were closed as he learned. He mentally caressed the fabric of his ancient elven sorcery and felt it intertwined energies of every living thing in this forest. Taken and lightly turned, never forced, toward the needs of the community. Thus the spellweavers used their powers, gently but persistently spinning the fiber of these ever-natural energies into a thread of magic that could be used. He touched the magic with his mind, and he knew. He knew his powers were growing beyond human understanding, becoming godlike in comparison to what he had once thought were the limits of his talents. He had mastered much in the passing year, yet he knew there was much to learn. Still, with his tutoring, he now had the means to find other sources of knowledge. The secrets known to few but the greatest masters to pass between worlds by strength of will, to move through time and even to cheat death, he now understood were possible. And with that understanding, he knew he would someday discover the means of mastering those secrets. If he was granted enough time, and time was at a premium, the leaves of the trees echoed and rustled of the distant dark wind. The man in black set dark eyes upon the ancient being floating before him, as both withdrew their minds from the matrix. Speaking by the strength of mind, the man in black said, "Soon, a player." The other smiled, a pale blue eyes shone forth, a light of their own, a light which when first seen had startled the man in black. Now he knew that the light came from a deep power beyond any he had known in any mortal save one other. But this was a different power. Not the astonishing might of that other, but the soothing, healing power of life, love, and serenity. This being was truly one with all around him. To gaze into those glowing eyes was to be made whole, and his smile was a comfort to see. The thoughts that crossed the distance between the two was gently floated earthward were troubled. It has been a year. It would have served us all had we more time, but time passes as it will, and it may be that you are ready. Then, with a texture of thought, the black-robed man had come to understand was humor. He added aloud, "But ready or unready, it is time." The others rose as one for a silent moment. The black-clad one felt their minds join with his in a final farewell. They were sending him back to where the struggle was underway, a struggle in which he was to play a vital part. But they were sending him with much more than he had possessed when he had come to them. He felt the last contact and said, "Thank you. I will return to where I can travel quickly home." Without further words, he closed his eyes and vanished. Those in the circle were silent for a moment. Then each turned to undertake whatever task awaited him or her. In the branches, the leaves remained restless, and the echo of the dark wind was slowly fading. The dark wind blew in till it reached the ridge trail above the distant vale, where a band of men crouched in hiding. For a brief moment, they faced south, as if seeking the source of this oddly disturbing wind. Then they returned to observing the plains below. The two closest to the edge had ridden long and hard in response to a report by an outriding patrol. Below, an army gathered under banners of ill aspect. The leader, a graying, tall man with a black patch over his right eye, hunkered down below the ridge. "It's as bad as we feared," he said in hushed tones. The other man, not tall but stouter, scratched his grey, short black beard as he squatted beside his companion. No, worse, he whispered. But by the number of campfires, there's one hell of a storm brewing down there. The man with the eye patch sat silently for a long moment. Well, we've somehow gained a year. I expect them to hit us last summer. It is well we prepared, for now they'll surely come. He moved in a crouch as he returned to where a tall blond man held his horse. Are you staying? The second man said. Yes. I think I'll watch for a while. By seeing how many arrive, and at what rate, I may hazard a good guess at how many he's bringing. The leader mounted. The blond man said, What matter? When he comes, he'll bring all he has. I just don't like surprises, I suppose. How long? Asked the first man. 2, 3 days at most. Then it will get too crowded hereabouts. They're certain to have patrols out by now. 2 days at most. With a grim smile, he said, You're not much as company goes, but after 2 years I've grown used to having you around. Be careful. The second man flashed a broad grin. That cuts 2 ways. You've stung them enough for the last 2 years. They'd love to throw a net over you. It wouldn't do to have them show up at the city gates with your head on a battle pike, the blond man said. That will not happen. His open smile was a contrast to his tone, one of determination, and the other two knew well. Well, let's just see it doesn't. Now get along. The company moved out, with one rider staying behind to accompany the stout man at his watch. After a long minute of observing, the stout man muttered softly, What are you up to this time, you misbegotten son of a motherless whoremonger? So what are you going to throw at us this summer? Mormandamus. And so ends the prologue of A Darkness at Sethanon. Oh. I mean, like myself, it slows down every word. I don't even know what you guys are talking about. Alright, friends, we are going to take a quick break. I'm going to go check on the lady real quick. And then the bot gives a welcome message to announce new followers and subscribers. Oh, yes, it does. Oh, yes. Petra, you missed the synopsis of the last book, which is not too much of a big deal because you were here for some of that. And you missed some of the prologue for this story. But again, that shouldn't be too much of a big deal since it didn't tell us a whole lot, but it did tell us some things. And Keith, thank you for the heart me and for the Go Popular and for the goats. Tips to the Tavern Keeper, always appreciated, my friend. Thank you kindly. It is deeply appreciated. Well, I did not get a notification for the subscription, Esther, but thank you for the subscription. It is appreciated. Because normally it will pop up and give me a little notification and then you'll get some tavern fare for doing it. But it did not pop up any which way. We appreciate all that you give, Esther. Thank you kindly. Alright, friends. She got a prime crown. Yeah, it didn't pop up for me. I don't know what the deal is. Sometimes it's been doing that. But it is appreciated in any case. We can pop Destiny's Mead of the Morning Star there again for you. Frost, welcome back. Alright, I'm gonna pop up here for a second, And I will be right back for you folks over on Twitch. We're going to run ads again so that we don't get interrupted during the reading of chapter 1. And we will read chapter 1 for a bit. So, here we go. I will be right back. All right, my friends. I have returned. This is my first 3-day weekend in 2 years, so it's very exciting, Kai. All right. Let us return to a darkness in Sethanon. As you said, on my previous Twitch account, I was unable to join as a Prime member. However, I am now on a new account and I can immediately link my Prime membership to Twitch without any issues. Well, that's good news. Lucky Vatharong, you said, I have a question for you. So my ancestry goes back to Scotland and Ireland. I've always felt connected to that side of my family. I was thinking about getting a Tree of Life. Celtic note on the back of my right hand. Just kind of curious what your opinion would be, because I would get the door knot on my left hand. Well, if the subscription went through, Esther, you shouldn't get ads. So if you did get ads, the subscription didn't go through. So, Lucky, to answer your question, so the way that my family looks at tattoos is very different from the way that most of the world looks at tattoos. Sword Talk, hello, hey there everyone, not staying long, well, we'll enjoy you for a while we've got you, Sword Talk, welcome in. Molly Sue, hello, sorry to be late everyone, getting up for work tonight. That's alright, Molly, I'm glad that you made it in any case. The way that my family looks at tattoos, we call them, tattoos and jewelry, we call adornments. And adornments are used specifically to connotate honor, dishonor, or if you are a male of age, then you would record family histories on your back using a tree. We're very specific about scarring our bodies and what we wear, because it's a part of our tradition for story keeping. Now, that being said, there are a lot of people who get Celtic knot, Tree of Life tattoos on them. I would say just make sure you understand the imagery before you get anything tattooed on you, if you're trying to be respectful, but it really just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you just want a neat tattoo, then just go get a neat tattoo. There's nothing restricting you from doing something like that. I guess my question would be, what are you trying to accomplish with the tattoos, as far as respect to culture, in respects to what story do you want the tattoos to tell? There's a lot that goes into that consideration, depending on what it is you want to do with it. It depends on the culture. Yeah. Like, there are some cultures that are very sensitive about people not a part of that culture getting those tattoos. As far as I'm concerned, it's not a huge deal what you want to do. Like, if you don't follow a tradition and you're not a part of the tradition, then it really doesn't matter what you do with your own body and what you're doing. You should always endeavor to be sensitive to the cultures that you're displaying their images on your body, but it's not as world ending as a lot of people like to make it to be. Most of us are nobodies doing nothing, so I don't put as much of an emphasis on this as most people do. Now, in my family, if you understand the traditions, you're partaking in them, and you get those tattoos wrong, then it's a big deal. Within the context of the tradition, it's a big deal. But if you're just some random person who's getting a tattoo, I don't put that much weight on it. It's not that big of a deal to me. I'm not discounting other people to whom it is a big deal. I'm just saying, from my perspective, it's not a big deal if you're just a random person getting a tattoo. I think it's silly, and a lot of times I think it's dumb, but it's your life. You're allowed to do whatever you want to do with it. So my question would be, what are you trying to accomplish with the tattoo, and what is it you'd like to see come out of that on the back end? Would be my question. Would having antagonists turning on each other be okay for a story? Sure, why not? Villains are villainous. Let them villain. Let them do villain things. Especially if you have some particularly, like, vile people who are your villains. Having your villains turn on each other is peak. Maybe you gotta go lay the list down. Tell him if he doesn't go to sleep, I'm gonna crawl out from under his bed while he's sleeping and bite him on his ankle. We are reading Darkness in Sethanon today, Sotalk. It is the 4th book in the Apprentice series, the Magician series. I'm sorry, the Rift War saga. He likes scary stuff, but does he like having his ankles bitten? Is the question. Because I'm not gonna be gentle. I'm gonna bite it like I'm a little dog trying to prove something. Harold will get him. Yeah, exactly. Quote. Harold will get in there and get him. Villains often have a better reason to burn the world than a hero's reason to save it. True, but more importantly is that villains often have a stronger resolve internally to burn the world than the heroes do their resolve to save it, because people are really bad at really bad at writing heroes. Ashley, I'm sorry if I didn't say hello, but hello, love. We're doing well. The lady's in the other room. She's actually working on some stuff for our Twisted Fates series, which is I'm very excited about. Family dominance or dominance over family? I'm not sure what the question is, Wesley. Okay, now actually BRB. What have I missed? I was away for 10 minutes. You missed almost nothing, Esther. I was gonna start reading and then somebody asked me a question. I can come and scare the little one. Yeah, we're very excited about it. Which, by the way, everyone who is a gold member or who is on Patreon, you're gonna get all 5 character chapters first, and then we're gonna put them out as narrated videos for everybody to decide what direction the story is going to go in. So we're very excited. Hopefully that will be soon. I'm planning on getting it done this week, but every time I say that, something happens and then I'm behind. So hopefully this week, but we'll see what happens. No matter what, gold members and Patreon folk are going to get to read it, but the rest of everyone will get it when they come out for people to make the decisions. Kai and I are discussing the word I made. Oh, I see. Just think of me as Sully with a beard coming through his closet door. Yeah, hopefully. I hate to promise anything because everything is so chaotic with the lady and I right now that whenever I promise something, a bunch of things come up and then I'm not able to keep this promise. So I've tried not to promise anything as of late. All right. Chapter 1 of A Darkness at Sethanon. Festival. Jimmy raced down the hall. The last few months had been a time of growth for Jimmy. He would be counted 16 years old the next Midsummer's Day. Though no one knew his real age, 16 seemed a likely guess, although he might be closer to 17 or even 18 years old. Always athletic, he had begun to broaden in the shoulders and had gained nearly a head of height since coming to court. He now looked more the man than the boy. But some things never change. Jimmy's sense of responsibility remained one of them. While he could be counted upon for important tasks, his disregard for the trivial once again threatened to turn the Prince of Krondor's court into chaos. Duty prescribed that he, as senior squire of the Prince's court, be the first at assembly, and as usual, he was likely to be last. Somehow, punctuality seemed to elude him. He arrived either late or early, but rarely on time. Squire Locklear stood at the door to the minor hall used as the squire's assembly point, waving frantically for Jimmy to hurry. Of all the squires, only Locklear had become the friend of the prince's squire, since Jimmy returned with Arutha from the quest for Silverthorn. Despite Jimmy's first accurate judgment that Locklear was a child in many ways, the youngest son of the Baron of the Land's End had displayed a certain taste for the reckless that had both surprised and pleased his friend. No matter how chancy a scheme Jimmy plotted, Locklear usually agreed. When delivered up to trouble as a result of Jimmy's gambles, with the patience of the court officials, Locklear took his punishment with grace, counting it the fair price of being caught. Jimmy sped into the room, sliding across the smooth marble floor as he sought to hold himself. 24 green and brown-clad squires formed a neat pair of lines in the hall. He looked around, noting everyone was where they were supposed to be. He assumed his own appointed place at the instant the Master of Ceremonies, Brian de Lacy, entered. When given the rank of senior squire, Jimmy had thought it would be all privilege and no responsibility. He had been quickly disabused of that notion. An integral part of the court, albeit a minor one, he was, when he failed his duty, confronted by the single most important fact known to all bureaucrats of any nation or epoch. Those above were not interested in excuses, only in results. Jimmy lived and died with every mistake made by the squires. So far, it had not been a good year for Jimmy. With measured steps and rustling red and black robes of office, the tall, dignified Master of Ceremonies crossed to stand behind Jimmy. Technically, his first assistant after the steward of the royal household, but most often his biggest problem. Flanking Master de Lacy were 2 purple and yellow uniformed court pages, commoners' sons who would grow up to be servants in the palace. Unlike the squires, who would someday be among the rulers of the Western Realm, Master de Lacy absently tapped his iron-shod staff of office on the floor and said, "Just beat me in again, did you, Squire James?" Keeping a straight face despite the stifled laughter coming from some of the boys in the back ranks, Jimmy said, "Everyone is accounted for, Master de Lacy. Squire Jerome is in his quarters, excused for injury." With a weary resignation in his voice, de Lacy said, "Yes, I heard of your little disagreement on the playfield yesterday. I think we'll not dwell on your constant difficulties with Jerome. I had another note from his father. I think in the future I'll simply pass these notes on to you." Jimmy tried to look innocent and failed. "Now, before I go over the day's assignments, I feel it appropriate to point out one fact. You are expected at all times to behave as young gentlemen. Towards this cause, I think it also appropriate to discourage a newly emerging trend, namely, wagering upon the outcome of barrel ball matches played on 6th day. Do I make myself clear?" The question seemed to be addressed to the assembly squires, but de Lacy's hand fell upon Jimmy's shoulder at the moment. "From this day forward, no more wagering unless it is something honourable, such as horses, of course. Make no mistake, that is an order." All the squires muttered acknowledgment. Jimmy nodded solemnly, secretly relieved that he had already placed the bet on that afternoon's match. So much interest among the staff and minor nobility had arisen over this game that Jimmy had been frantically trying to discover a way he could charge admission. There might be a high price to pay should Master de Lacy discover Jimmy had already bet the match, but Jimmy felt honour had been satisfied. De Lacy had said nothing about existing wagers. Master de Lacy quickly went over the schedule prepared the night before by Jimmy. Whatever complaint the Master of Ceremonies might have had with his senior squire, he had none with the boy's work. Whatever task Jimmy undertook, he did well. Getting him to undertake the task was usually the problem. When the morning Duty was assigned, Lacey said. At 15 minutes before the second hour afternoon, assemble on the palace steps, for at 2 hours afternoon, Prince Arutha and his court will arrive for presentation. As soon as the ceremony is complete, you're excused of duty for the rest of the day, so those of you with families here will be free to stay with them. However, 2 of you will be required to stand ready for the prince's family and guests. I've selected Squire Locklear and James to serve that duty. You 2 will go at once to Earl Verney's office and put yourselves at his disposal. That will be all. Jimmy stood frozen in chagrined silence for a long moment, while De Lacy left and the company of squires broke up. Locklear ambled over to stand before Jimmy and said with a shrug, "Well, aren't we the lucky ones? Everyone else gets to run around and eat and drink and—" He threw a sidelong glance at Jimmy and grinned. "Kiss girls, and we've got to stick close to their highnesses." "Oh, kill him," said Jimmy, venting his displeasure. Locklear shook his head. "Jerome? Who else?" Jimmy motioned for his friend to fall in as he walked away from the hall. "He told De Lacy about the betting, and he's paying me back for that black eye I gave him yesterday." Locklear sighed in resignation. "We don't stand a chance of beating Tom and Jason and the other apprentices today, with us both not playing." Locklear and Jimmy were the 2 best athletes in the company of squires. Nearly as quick as Jimmy, Locklear was second only to him among the squires in swordsmanship. Together they were the 2 best ball handlers in the palace, and with both out of the match, it was near certain victory for the apprentices. "How much did you bet?" "All of it," answered Jimmy. Locklear winced. The squires had been pooling their silver and gold for months in anticipation of this match. "Well, how was I to know De Lacy would pull out this business? Besides, with all those losses we've had, I got 5-2 odds in favour of the apprentices." He had spent months developing a losing trend in the squire's game, setting up this big wager. He considered, "We may not be out of it yet. I'll think of something." Changing the subject, Locklear said, "Just cut it a little fine today. What held you up this time?" Jimmy grinned, his features losing their dark aspect. "I was talking to Mariana." Then his features returned to the expression of disgust. "She was going to meet me after the game, but now we'll be with the prince and the princesses." Accompanying his growth since the last summer, another change in Jimmy had been his discovery of girls. Suddenly their company and good opinion of him were vital. Given his upbringing and knowledge, especially compared to those of the other squires in the court, Jimmy was worldly beyond his years. The former thief had been making his presence known among the younger serving girls of the palace for several months. Mariana was simply the most recent to catch his fancy and be swept off her feet by the clever, witty, handsome young squire. Jimmy's curly brown hair, ready green, and flashing dark eyes had caused him to become an object of concern for more than one of the girl's parents among the palace staff. Locklear attempted to look uninterested, a pose that was quickly eroding as he himself became more often focused of the palace girl's attention. He was getting taller by the week, it seemed, almost as tall as Jimmy now. His wavy blonde-streaked brown hair and cornflower blue eyes, framed by almost feminine lashes, his handsome smile and his friendly, easy manner had made him popular among the younger girls of the palace. He hadn't grown quite comfortable with the idea of girls yet, as at home he had only brothers. But being around Jimmy had already convinced him that there was more to girls than he had thought back at Land's End. "Well," Locklear said, picking up the pace of their walking, "if De Lacy doesn't have a reason to chuck you out of service, or Jerome doesn't have you beaten in town by town roughs, some jealous kitchen boy or angry father's likely to comb your hair with a cleaver. But none of them will even have a prayer if we're late to Chancery, because Earl Verney will have our heads on pikes. Come on. With a laugh and an elbow to the ribs, Locklear was off, with Jimmy a step behind as they ran down the halls. Only one servant looked up from his dusting to watch the boys race along, and for a moment reflect on the magics of youth. Then, resigned to the effects of time's passage, he returned to the duties at hand. All right, Wesley, hopefully we'll see you back a little bit later, but if not, have a good night. From Travolta, hello, my friend. Littlest has passed out. Victory! Lyoko, hello, welcome in. Good to see you. Alright, I haven't missed anyone else, have I? Tron came in, Petra came in. I did say hello to Petra. Alright, looks like we're good across the board. Welcome, 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 grab your seat. I told him you would eat all his Nutella if he didn't go to sleep. Perfect. I'll give all of his Nutella to my dog. Alright. The crowd cheered as the heralds began their march down the steps of the palace. They cheered in part because they would now be addressed by their prince, who, while somewhat aloof, was well respected and counted even-handed with justice. They cheered in part because they would see the princess whom they loved. She was a symbol of What is this song? Hang on a second. Sounds like a weird Christmas song. It might actually be Christmas song. Yeah, I just got weird all of a sudden. Yeah, who knows where that came from? Alright. Well, most of all, they cheered because they were among the lucky citizens, not of the nobility, who would be allowed to eat from the prince's larder and to drink from his wine cellar. The festival, the presentation, was conducted 30 days following the birth of any member of the royal family. How it began remained a mystery, but it was commonly held that the ancient rulers of the city-state of Sethanon were required to show the people of every rank and station that their heirs to the throne were born without flaw. Now it was a welcome holiday to the people, for it was as if an extra midsummer festival had been granted. Those guilty of misdemeanors were pardoned, matters of honor were considered resolved, and dueling was forbidden for a week and a day following the presentation. All debts owing since the last presentation, Princess Anita's 19 years ago, were forgiven, and for the afternoon and evening, rank was put aside as commoners and nobles ate at the same table. As Jimmy took his place behind the heralds, he realized that someone always had to work. Someone had to prepare all the food being served today, and someone had to clean it up tonight. He had to stand ready to serve Arutha and Anita should they require it. Sighing to himself, he considered again the responsibilities that seemed to find him no matter where he ate. Locklear hummed softly to himself while the heralds continued to take up position, followed by the members of Arutha's household guard, the arrival of Gardon, Knight Marshal of Krondor, Earl Volney, acting participant chancellor, indicated the ceremonies were about to begin. The grey-haired soldier, with his black face set in an amused expression, nodded to the portly chancellor, then signalled to Master de Lacy to begin. The master of ceremonies staff struck the ground, and the trumpeters and drummers sounded ruffles and flourishes. The crowd hushed as the master of ceremonies struck the ground again, and the herald cried, "Hearken to me! Hearken to me! His Highness Arutha de Condoin, Prince of Crondor, Lord of the Western Realms, heir to the throne of Rillanon! The crowd cheered, though it was more a form than out of any genuine enthusiasm. Arutha was the sort of man who inspired deep respect and admiration, not affection in the populace. A tall, rangy, dark-haired man entered, dressed in muted brown clothing of fine weave, his shoulders covered in the red mantle of his office. He paused, his brown eyes narrow, while the herald announced the princess. When the slender, red-headed princess of Crondor joined her husband, the merry glint in her green eyes caused him to smile, and the crowd began to cheer in earnest. Here was their beloved Anita, daughter of Arutha's predecessor Erlond. Well, the actual ceremony would be quickly over. The introduction of nobles took a great deal longer. Cadre of palace nobles and guests was entitled to public presentation. The first pair of these was announced. Their Graces, the Duke and Duchess of Salador. A handsome blond man offered his arm, and a dark-haired woman. Laurie, former minstrel and traveller, now Duke of Salador, and husband of Princess Carline, escorted his beautiful wife to her brother's side. They had arrived in Crondor a week before to see their nephews and would stay another week. On and on droned the herald as other members of the nobility were introduced, and finally, visiting dignitaries, including Keshin ambassadors, Lord Hazara Khan entered with only 4 bodyguards, foregoing the usual Keshian pomp. The ambassador was dressed in the style of the desert men of Yolpur, cloth head cover that left only the eyes exposed, long robe of indigo over a white tunic, and trousers tucked into calf-high black boots. The bodyguards were garbed from head to foot in black. Then de Lacy stepped forward and called, "Let the populace approach." Several hundred men and women of varying rank, from the poorest beggar to the richest commoner, gathered below the steps of the palace. Arutha spoke the ritual words of the presentation. Today is the 310th day of the 2nd year of our reign of our Lord King Liam I. Today, we present our sons. Lacey struck his staff upon the ground, and the herald cried out, "Their Royal Highnesses, the Princes Boric and Erland." The crowd erupted into a near frenzy of shouts and tears as the twin sons of Arutha and Anita, born a month before, were publicly presented for the first time. The nurse selected to care for the boys came forward and gave her charges over to their mother and father. Arutha took Boric, named after his father, while Anita took her own father's namesake. Both babies endured the public showing with good grace, though Erlon showed signs of becoming fussy. The crowd continued to cheer even after Arutha and Anita had returned their sons to the care of the nurse. Arutha graced those gathered below the steps with another rare smile. "My sons are well and strong, and they are born without flaw. They are fit to rule. Do you accept them as sons of the royal house?" The crowd shouted in approbation. Anita reflected her husband's smile, and Arutha waved to the crowd. "Our thanks, good people. Until the feasting, I bid you all good day." The ceremony was over. Jimmy hurried to Arutha's side, as was his duty, with Locklear moved to Anita's side. Locklear was formerly a junior squire, but he was so often given duty with the princess that he was commonly considered to be her personal squire. Jimmy suspected de Lacy of wanting to keep Locklear and himself together, so watching them would be that much easier. The prince threw Jimmy a distracted half-smile as he watched his wife and sister fuss over the twins. The Kashin ambassador had removed his traditional face covering and was smiling at the sight. His 4 bodyguards hovered close. "Your Highness," said the Kashin, are thrice blessed. Healthy babies are a gift of the gods. They are sons, and two of them. Arutha basked in the glow of his wife, who looked radiant as she regarded her sons in the nurse's arms. Thank you, my Lord Hazara Khan. It is an unexpected benefit to have you with us this year. The weather in Durban is beastly this year, he said absently as he began to make faces at little Boric. He suddenly remembered his station and more formally said, Besides, Your Highness, we have a minor matter to finish discussing regarding the new border here in the west. Arutha laughed. With you, my dear Abdur, minor details become major concerns. I have little love for your prospect of facing you across the negotiating table again. Still, I'll pass along any suggestions you have to His Majesty. The Keshin bowed and said, I wait upon Your Highness's pleasure. Arutha seemed to notice the guards. I don't see your sons or Lord Daura Khan in attendance. They conduct business I would normally oversee among my people in Yarpur. These? Said Arutha, indicating the 4 bodyguards. Each was dressed entirely in jet, even to the scabbards of their scimitars, and while their costuming was similar to that of the desert men, it was different from anything Arutha had seen in Kesh. These are Ismailis, Highness. They serve as personal protection, nothing more. Arutha chose to say nothing as the knot of people around the babies seemed about to break up. The Ismailis were famous as bodyguards and the finest protection available to the nobility of the Empire of Great Kesh. But rumor had it that they were also highly trained spies and occasionally assassins. Their abilities were near legendary. They were reputed to be everything just short of ghosts in their ability to come and go undetected. Arutha disliked having men only one step away from assassins within his walls. But Abdur was entitled to his personal retinue, and Arutha judged it unlikely the Keshian ambassador would bring anyone to Krondor who might be dangerous to the kingdom besides himself. Arutha added silently. We also need to speak of the latest request from Quaig regarding docking rights in the kingdom's ports, said Lord Hazara Khan. Arutha looked openly amazed, and his expression changed to one of irritation. I suppose a passing fisherman or sailor had just mentioned it to you, and as you disembarked at the harbour. Highness, Kesh has friends in many places, answered the ambassador with an ingratiating smile. Well, it will certainly do no good to comment on Kesh's Imperial Intelligence Corps, for we know that. Hazara Khan joined in and they spoke in unison. No such group exists. Abdul Rahman Memo Hazara Khan bowed and said, With your Highness's kind permission. Arutha bowed slightly as the Keshin made his farewell, then turned to Jimmy. What? You 2 scoundrels drew duty today? Jimmy shrugged, indicating it wasn't his idea. Arutha noticed his wife instructing the nurse to return the twins to their nursery. Well, you must have done something to warrant this Lacey's displeasure. Still, we can't have you missing all the fun. I understand there's supposed to be a particularly good barrel ball game later this afternoon. Jimmy feigned surprise, while Locklear's face lighted up. I do think so, said Jimmy noncommittally. Motioning the boys to follow the prince's party, began to head inside. Arutha said, Well then, we'll have to drop in and see how it goes, won't we? Jimmy winked at Locklear. Then Arutha said, "Besides, if you boys lose that bet, your skins won't be worth a tanner's trouble by the time the other squires get through with you." Jimmy said nothing while they moved toward the great hall and the reception for the nobles before the commoners were admitted to the feast in the courtyard. Then he whispered to Locklear, "That man has an irritating habit of always knowing what we're going around doing here." The celebration was in full swing. Nobles mingling with those commoners granted admission to the palace courtyard. Long tables stood heavily laden with food and drink, and for many in attendance this was the finest meal they would eat this year. While formality was forgotten, the commoners still deferential to Arutha and his party, bowing slightly and using formal address. Jimmy and Locklear hovered nearby, in case they weren't needed. Carline and Laurie walked arm in arm behind Arutha and Anita. Since their own wedding, the new Duke and Duchess of Salador had settled down somewhat in contrast to their well-reported and stormy romance at the king's court. Anita turned towards her sister-in-law and said,
"I am pleased you could stay this long. It's so much a man's palace here in Krondor, and now with 2 boys. It's going to get worse,"
finished Carline.
"Being raised by a father and 2 boys, I know what you mean."
Arutha glanced over his shoulder at Laurie and said,
"It means she was spoiled shamelessly."
Laurie laughed, but thought better of comment as his wife's blue eyes narrowed. Anita said,
"Next time a daughter,
then she can be shamelessly spoiled as well," said Laurie.
"When are you 2 going to have children?"
asked Anita. Arutha turned from the table with a pitcher of ale, filling both his own and Laurie's mug. A servant hastened to present wine cups to the ladies. Carline answered Anita by saying,
"We'll have them when we have them. Believe me, it isn't for lack of trying."
Anita stifled a laugh behind her hand, while Arutha and Laurie exchanged startled glances. Carline looked from face to face and said,
"Don't tell me you 2 are blushing."
And to Anita she said,
"Men." Liam's last missive said Queen Magda might be with child. I expect we'll know certain when she sends his next bundle of dispatches,"
Carline said.
"Poor Liam. Always such one for the ladies, having to marry for reasons of state. Still, she's a decent sort, if a little dull. And he does seem happy enough."
Arutha said.
"The Queen isn't dull. Compared to you, a fleet of Quagan raiders is dull."
Laurie said nothing, but his blue eyes echoed Arutha's comment.
"I just hope they have a son."
Anita smiled.
"Arutha's anxious for another to be Prince of Krondor."
Carline looked at her brother knowingly.
"Still, you'll not be done with matters of state. With Caldric dead, Liam will rely upon you and Martin more than before.
Lord Caldric of Rillenon had died shortly after the king's marriage to the Princess Magda of Roldaun, leaving the office of Duke of Rillenon, Royal Chancellor, first advisor to the king, vacant. Arutha shrugged as he sampled the food on his plate.
"I think he'll find no end to applicants for Caldric's office."
Laurie said,
"That's exactly the problem. Too many nobles are seeking advantage over their neighbours. We've had 3 sizable border skirmishes between barons in the east. Not anything to have Liam send out his own army, but enough to make everyone in Malik's Cross nervous. That's why Bastira is still without a duke. Too powerful a duchy for Liam to hand over to just anyone. If you're not careful, you'll find yourself named Duke of Krondor or Bastira, should Magda give birth to a boy."
Carline said.
"Enough. This is a holiday. I'll have no more politics tonight.
Anita took Arutha's arm.
Come. We've had a good meal. There's a festival underway and the babies are blessedly asleep. Besides,
She added with a laugh.
tomorrow we have to start worrying over how we pay for this festival and the festivals of Banapus next month. Tonight we enjoy what we have.
Jimmy managed to insinuate himself next to the prince and said,
Would your harnesses be interested in viewing a contest?
Locklear and he exchanged worried glances, for the time of the game to begin was past. Anita threw her husband a questioning glance, and Arutha said,
I promised Jimmy we'd go and see the barrel ball match. He's conspired to have played today.
Lottie said,
That might be more entertaining than another round of jugglers and actors. That's only because most of your life has been spent around jugglers and actors,
said Caroline.
When I was a girl, it was considered the thing to sit and watch the boys beat each other to death in barrel ball game every sixth day, or pretending not to watch. I'll take the actors and jugglers.
Anita said,
Why don't you two go along with the boys? We're all informal today. We'll join you later in the Great Hall for the evening entertainment.
Lottie and Arutha agreed and followed the boys through the throng. They left the central courtyard of the palace and passed along a series of halls connecting the central palace complex to the outer buildings. Behind the palace stood a large marshalling yard. Near the stables where the palace guards drilled. A large crowd had gathered and was cheering lustily when Arutha, Lottie and Jimmy and Locklear arrived. They worked their way toward the front, jostling spectators. A few told them to complain to see those shoving past, but seeing the prince, said nothing. A place was made for them behind those squires not playing. Arutha waved to Gardan, who stood on the other side of the field, with a squad of off-duty soldiers. Lottie watched the play for a moment and said,
This is a lot more organized than I remember.
Arutha said,
It's DeLacy's doing. He wrote up rules for the game, after complaining to me about the number of boys too beat up to work after a match.
He pointed.
See that fellow with the sandglass? He times the contest. The game lasts an hour now. Only a dozen boys, to a side at a time, and they must play between those chalk lines on the ground. Jimmy, what are the other rules?
Jimmy was stripping off his belt and dagger in preparation and said,
No hands like always. When one side scores, it falls back past the midline point, and the other side gets to bring the ball up. No biting, grabbing an opponent, or weapons allowed.
Lottie said.
No weapons? Sounds too tame for me.
Locklear had already rid himself of his overtunic and belt and tapped another squire on the shoulder.
What's the score?
The squire never took his eyes from the play. A stable boy, driving the ball before him with his feet, was tripped by one of Jimmy's teammates, but the ball was intercepted by the baker's apprentice, who deftly kicked it into one of the two barrels situated at each end of the compound, and the squire groaned.
That puts them ahead 4 counts to 2. And we've less than a quarter hour to play.
Jimmy and Locklear both looked to Arutha, who nodded. They dashed into the field, replacing the two dirty, bloody squires. Jimmy took the ball from one of the two judges, another of DeLacy's innovations, kicked the ball toward the midline. Locklear, who had stationed himself there, quickly kicked it back to Jimmy, to the surprise of several apprentices who bore down upon him. Lightning fast, Jimmy passed them before they could recover. Ducking an elbow aimed at his head, he loosed a kick at the barrel's mouth. The ball struck the edge and bounced out, but Locklear broke free of the pack and kicked the rebound in, and the squires, a large number of minor nobles, were there on their feet cheering, now with the apprentices led by only 1 count. A minor scuffle broke out, and the judges quickly intervened. With no serious damage having been done, play resumed. Catherine Edwards, when I drop in late after you started, how do I find out what you're reading if I don't recognize it? I always put up here, up above me, there is always a note of what we are reading, Catherine. So if you ever drop in when we're on late, I always put the title of whatever we're reading right here above my head. If you're on, because you're on Facebook, so you should be able to see this if you put it into full screen mode. And if you're on TikTok, there's also a ticking banner that has it in there. Excellent. Yeah, it is small, so it's not immediately apparent, but it is up there. And we are reading the fourth book in the Rift War series. It's A Darkness in Sethanon by Raymond E. Feist. Alright, where was I? And also welcome in. I'm so glad you could join us. Grab your seat. Oh, Secret Agent Satan raided and I didn't even see him come in. Is Satan still here with us? We give him a toot on the raid horn, even if he's not. But welcome in to any who came in with the Secret Agent. A toot on the raid horn here. Viking raspberries incoming. Cover your ears if you need to. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Not at all, Matty. We read stuff the lady and I write on stream all the time. I'll be reading the Twisted Fate stories for you guys in a week or two. Whenever we get it done. If you didn't read it on your own stream, when would you read it? Gotta love Viking raspberries. Delicious. Alright. With no serious damage having been done, play resumed. The apprentices brought the ball up, and Locklear and Jimmy fell back. One of the larger squires threw a vicious block, knocking a kitchen boy into the one with the ball. Jimmy pounced like a cat, kicking the ball towards Locklear. The smaller squire deftly moved it upfield, passing it on to another squire who immediately kicked it back as several apprentices swarmed over him. A large stable boy rushed Locklear. He simply lowered his head and took Locklear himself and the ball across the field boundary rather than trying to tackle the ball. At once a fight broke out, and after the judges had separated the combatants, they helped Locklear to his feet. The boy was too shaken to continue, so another squire took his place. As both players had been beyond bounds, the judge ruled the ball free and tossed it into the center of the field. Both sides attempted to recover the ball as elbows, knees, and fists flew.
Now this is barrel ball, how barrel ball should be played, commented Laurie.
Suddenly, a stable boy broke free, no one between him and the squire's barrel. Jimmy took off after him, and seeing no hope of intercepting the ball, launched himself at the boy, repeating the technique used against Locklear. Again, the judge ruled the ball free, and another riot ensued at the midfield. Then, a squire named Paul had the ball and began to move it towards the apprentice's goal. With an unexpected skill, 2 larger baker's apprentices intercepted him, but he managed to pass the ball seconds before being leveled. The ball bounced to Squire Friedrich, who passed it to Jimmy. Jimmy expected another rush from the apprentices, but was surprised as they fell back, as they knew this was a new tactic, employed against the lightning passing Jimmy and Locklear had brought to the game. The squires on the sideline shouted encouragement, and one yelled,
"There's only a few minutes left!"
Jimmy motioned Squire Friedrich to his side, shouted quick instructions, and then was off. Jimmy swept to the left, dropped the ball back to Friedrich, who moved back towards the midfield. Jimmy cut to his right, Then he took a well-aimed pass from Friedrich towards the barrel. He dodged a siding tackle and kicked the ball into the barrel. The crowd shouted in appreciation, for this match was bringing something new to barrel ball: tactics and skill. In what was always a rough game, an element of precision was being introduced. Then another fight broke out. The judges rushed to break it up, but the apprentices were unbending in their reluctance to end the scuffle. Locklear, his head had stopped ringing, said to Laurie and Arutha,
"They're trying to hold up the game until the time runs out. They know we'll win if we get another crack at the ball."
Finally, order was restored. Locklear judged himself fit enough to return and replaced the boy injured in the scuffle. Jimmy waved his squires back, quickly whispering instructions to Locklear as the apprentices slowly brought the ball up. They attempted the passing demonstrated by Jimmy, Friedrich, and Locklear, but with little skill. They nearly kicked the ball out of bounds twice before regaining control of errant passes. Then Jimmy and Locklear struck. Locklear feinted a tackle towards the ball handler, forcing him to pass, and then darted towards the barrel. Jimmy came sweeping in behind, and the others acting like a screen, and picked up the badly passed ball, kicking it towards Locklear. The smaller boy took the ball and broke towards the barrel. One defender attempted to overtake him, but couldn't catch the swifter squire. Then the apprentice took something from his shirt and threw it at Locklear. To the surprise of the onlookers, it seemed the boys simply fell face down and the ball was out of bounds. Jimmy rushed to the side of his comrade, then suddenly was up and after the boy who was attempting to bring the ball to the field. With no pretense of playing the game, Jimmy struck the apprentice in the face, knocking him back. Then a fight erupted, but this time several apprentices and squires from the sides joined the fray. Arutha turned to Laurie and said, "This could get ugly. Think I should do something?" Laurie watched the fight pick up tempo. "If you want a squire left intact for duty tomorrow." Arutha signaled to Gardon, who waved some soldiers onto the field. The seasoned fighting men quickly restored order. Arutha walked across the field and knelt next to where Jimmy sat, cradling Locklear's head in his lap.
"That bastard hit him on the back of the head with a piece of horseshoe iron. He's out cold."
Arutha regarded the fallen boy and then said to Gardon,
"Have him carried to his quarters and have the doctor examine him."
he said to the timekeeper.
"This game is over."
Jimmy seemed on the verge of protesting, then seemed to think better of it. The timekeeper called out,
"Score is tied at 4 counts apiece. No winners."
Jimmy sighed.
"No losers, at least."
The pair of guards picked up Locklear and carried him away. Arutha said to Laurie,
"Still a pretty rough game."
The former singer nodded.
"De Lacy needs a few more rules before they start cracking heads."
Jimmy walked back to where his tunic and belt lay, while the crowd wandered off. Arutha and Laurie followed.
We'll have another go sometime,"
remarked the youngster.
"It could be interesting," said Arutha. Now that they know about that passing trick of yours, they'll be ready. So we'll have to come up with something else." "Well, then I guess it might be worthwhile to make a day of it. Say, in a week or two."
Arutha placed his hand on Jimmy's shoulder.
"I think I'll have to look at these rules of De Lacy's. Laurie's right. If you're going to be dashing pell-mell up and down the field, we can't have you tossing irons at one another."
Jimmy seemed to lose interest in the game. Something in the crowd caught his eye.
"See that fellow there? The one with the blue tunic and grey cap?"
The prince glanced in the indicated direction.
"No. He just ducked away when you looked. But I know him. May I go and investigate?"
Something in Jimmy's tone made Arutha certain this was not another ploy to escape duty. Go on. Just don't be away too long. Laura and I will be returning to the Great Hall. Jimmy ran off to where he last saw the fellow. He halted and looked about, then noticed the familiar figure standing near the narrow stairway into the side entrance. The man leaned against the wall, hidden in the shadows, eating from a platter. He only glanced up when Jimmy approached.
There you are, then, Jimmy the Hand. No longer Squire James of Crondor, or Varney the Quick.
The old thief chuckled.
And that also no longer, though I was quick in my day.
He lowered his voice so anyone else was unlikely to overhear. He said,
My master sends message for your master.
Jimmy knew at once something major was afoot. For Varney the Quick was the Dame Master of the Mockers, the Guild of Thieves. He was no common errand runner, but one of the most highly placed and trusted aides of the upright man.
My word only. My master says the birds of prey, thought gone from the city, have returned from the north.
A chill visited the pit of Jimmy's stomach.
Those that hunt at night.
The old thief nodded as he popped a lightly brown pastry into his mouth. He closed his eyes for a moment and made a satisfied sound, and then his eyes were on Jimmy, narrowing as he spoke.
Sorry I was to see you leave us, Jimmy the Hand. You had promised you could have been the power in the Mockers if you'd have kept your throat uncut. But that's what had gone, as they say, to the heart of the message. Young Tyburn Reams was found floating in the bay. There are places near where the smugglers used to ply their trade. One is a place that smells as if little importance to the Mockers and therefore is neglected. It may be that is where such birds are hard. Now then, there's an end to the matter.
Without further conversation, Varney the Quick, Dame Master of the Mockers, and former Master Thief sauntered off into the crowd, vanishing among the revellers. Jimmy did not hesitate. He dashed back to where Arutha had been only a few minutes before, and, not finding him, headed for the Great Hall. The number of people before the palace made it difficult to move quickly. Seeing hundreds of strange faces in the corridors suddenly filled Jimmy with alarm. In the months since Arutha and he had returned from Morelin with Silverthorn to cure the stricken Anita, they had become lulled by commonplace, everyday quality of palace life. Suddenly the boys saw an assassin's dagger in every hand, poison in every wine cup, and a bomb in every shadow. Struggling past celebrants, he hurried on. Jimmy darted through the press of nobles and other less distinguished guests in the great hall. Near the dais, a clot of people were deep in conversation. Laurie and Carline were speaking with the Keshan ambassador, while Arutha mounted the steps toward his throne. A band of acrobats is hard at work in the center of the hall, forcing Jimmy to skirt the clearing made for them, while dozens of citizens looked on in appreciation. As he moved through the press, Jimmy glanced up at the windows of the hall, with deep shadows within each cupola haunting him with memories. He felt anger at himself as much as anyone. He above all others should remember what menace should be lurking in the palace. Jimmy darted past Laurie and reached Arutha's side, as the prince sat upon his throne. Anita was nowhere in sight. Jimmy glanced at her empty throne and inclined his head. Arutha said, She's gone to look in on the babies. Why? Jimmy leaned near Arutha. My former master sends a message. The Nighthawks have returned to Crondor. Arutha's expression turned somber. Is this speculation, or is it certainty? First, the upright man would not send whom he sent unless he counted the matter critical, needing quick resolution. He exposed one of the high mockers to public scrutiny. Second, there was a young gambler by the name of Tyburn Reams, who was often seen in the city.
He had some special disposition with the mockers, who's permitted things few men not of our guild are permitted. Now I know why. He was a personal agent of my former master. Reams is now dead. My guess is that the upright man was alert of the possibility of Nighthawk's return, and Reams was sent to discover their whereabouts. They are once again hidden somewhere in the city, where the upright man does not know, but he suspects near the old smuggler's warren.
Jimmy had been speaking to the prince while glancing about the hall. Now he turned to look at Arutha, and words failed him. Arutha's face was a hard mask of controlled anger, almost to the point of a grimace. Several nearby turned to stare at him. In a harsh whisper, he said to Jimmy,
"So, it's to begin again,"
Jimmy said.
"So it would seem.
Arutha stood.
I'll not become a prisoner in my own palace, with guards at every window."
Jimmy's eyes roamed the hall, past where the Duchess Caroline stood charming the Kashin ambassador.
"Well and good, but this is one day your house is overrun with strangers. Common sense dictates you retire to your suite early, for if there is ever a golden chance to get close to you, it's now."
His eyes kept passing from face to face, seeking some sign of something was amiss.
"If the Nighthawks are again in Crondor, then they are in this hall and en route as the night approaches. You may find them waiting somewhere here and in your own quarters."
Suddenly, Arutha's eyes widened.
"My quarters! Anita and the babies!"
The prince was off, ignoring the startled faces about him, Jimmy at his heels. Caroline and Lottie saw something was wrong and followed. Within moments, a dozen people trailed behind the prince as he hurried down the corridor. Gardan had seen the hasty exit and had fallen in beside Jimmy. "What is it?" Jimmy said.
"The Nighthawks."
The Knight Marshal of Crondor needed no further warning. He grabbed at the sleeve of the first guard he met in the hall, motioning for another to follow. To the first he said, "Send for the captain, Valdis, and have him join me." The soldier said,
"Where will you be, sir?"
Gardan sent the man off with a shove. "Tell him to find us." As they hurried along, Gardan gathered nearly a dozen soldiers behind him. When Arutha reached the door to his quarters, he hesitated for a moment, as if fearful to open the door. Pushing open the door, he discovered Anita sitting next to the cribs wherein their son slept. She looked up, and at once an expression of alarm crossed her features. Coming to her husband, she said,
"What is it?"
Arutha closed the door behind, motioning for Caroline and the others to wait without.
"Nothing yet."
He paused for a moment.
"I want you to take the babies and visit your mother,"
Anita said.
"She would welcome that."
But her tone left no doubt. She understood there was more here than she was being told.
"Her illness has passed, though she still doesn't feel up to travel. It will be a treat for her."
Then she fixed Arutha with a questioning look.
"And we shall be more easily protected in her small estate than here."
Arutha knew better than to attempt to hide anything from Anita.
"Yes, we again have Nighthawks to worry about."
Anita came to her husband and rested her head upon his chest. The last assassination attempt had nearly cost her life.
"I have no fear for myself, but the babies." "You leave tomorrow. I'll make ready."
Arutha kissed her and moved toward the door.
"I'll return shortly. Jimmy advises our keeping quarters until the palace is free of strangers. Good advice, but I must remain on public view for a while longer. The Nighthawks think us ignorant of their return. We cannot let them think otherwise."
Finding humor amid the terror, Anita said,
Jimmy seeks to be first advisor to the prince."
Arutha smiled at that.
"He's not spoken of to be named Duke of Crondor for nearly a year. Sometimes I think he'd be better suited than any others likely to come to that office."
Arutha opened the door and found Gardan, Jimmy, Lottie, and Caroline waiting. Others had been moved away by the company of the Royal Household Guard. Next to Gardon, Captain Valdis awaited. Arutha told him, I want a full company of lancers ready to ride in the morning, Captain. The princess and the babies will be travelling to the princess mother's estate. Guard them well. Captain Valdis saluted, turned to issue orders. To Gardon, Arutha said, begin to slowly place men back at posts throughout the palace, and have every possible hiding place searched. Should any inquire, say Her Highness is feeling poorly, and that I'm staying with her for a while. I'll return to the Great Hall shortly. Gardon nodded and left. Then Arutha said to Jimmy, I have an errand for you. Jimmy said, I'll leave at once, Arutha said. What do you think you ought to do? Go to the docks, the boy said with a grim smile. Arutha nodded, again both pleased and surprised at the boy's grasp of things. Yes, if you must, search all night. But as soon as you can, find Trevor Hull and bring him here. And so ends Chapter 1 of a new adventure into the world of Feist, a darkness at Sethanon. Not quite as ramped, not quite as insane as the first chapter of Silverthorn, but still, I'd say that's a solid start of it. Just curious, for that Norse-inspired story I showed you, Castle, would it be better to use meritocratic names for characters like Odin and his race? That way, they're explicitly only named after and playing on various aspects of said namesake. That is how a lot of figures in Norse mythology are named. I expect so as well, Frost, because it seems to me, now this is going to bore anybody who's not particularly familiar with the story and who hasn't been keeping up, but it seems to me that Myrmandamus might be like the progenitor of the Dragon Lords. It seems like Myrmandamus is the first of the Dragon Lords, or at least something like that, because he's got the dragon mark on his chest, and it seems like he predates the Dragon Lords. So it seems like maybe what caused the fall of the Dragon Lords and all of these aspects, it seems like that might be where this is heading. Which, if that is the case, it's going to be absolutely fascinating. And we also know that Pug is going to be returning very soon, because in the prologue he was getting ready to leave from the mirrored elven village in Kelowon. So yeah, a lot of names and titles, like you will find multiple names given to this same figure when you get to prehistory, especially in European things. Because it was very common for people to change their name based on their accomplishments. Excuse me. Thanks for reading, Castle. Oh, I got the hiccups. Good night, everyone. Good night, Betty Babe. So good of you to join us. Well, no, you got to be careful with stuff like that. Because the Wild Hunt is a very particular thing. You want the name to be more symbolic than direct. You don't want there to be anything that is too over the top in the way that you name, because you want it to be reflective of the thing. You don't want it to necessarily be exactly the thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, it just when you're naming these, because like in Celtic myth, you got to find a lot of figures that are named for things like Cuchulainn, who is the greatest hero in recorded Celtic myth and history. His birth name was Setanta, But then he became known as Cuchulainn because he became the Hound of Cullen. And his name from then on was that. So names and titles sort of conflate. But you want it to be indicative of the thing that is most prominent. I've had to restart my computer. I am off YouTube and Facebook at the moment. That's all right, Bear. We just finished. I'm probably going to only do because my throat is feeling scratchy. So I'm probably only going to do one, maybe two songs. And then we'll be off for the night. Yeah, no, absolutely, Maddie. Again, like, naming things is really important because you can't just have random names for characters because a lot of people do that. And of course, you can just have random names. I'm not saying you can't do it, but it is better for the story if the names have some sort of meaning. Beauty and Blasphemy, you did indeed make it in time for songs. They're bugging me to run ads over on Twitch, so we're going to run one more set of ads, then we're going to do a couple of songs before I send you all off out into the world. Yeah, probably no Valhalla calling for tonight. You two are meant to. Oh, well, I had assumed, Bear. I generally choose name with meaning. Even Barry's name has a symbolic meaning. Yeah, and you don't have to be terribly deep with things, but it's like in my family we put a lot of thought into what we name our children, right? Like naming our children is very important. But some people will just pick a name that sounds pretty and name their children that. That's not uncommon, it happens all the time. But I prefer in my writing for names to mean something and to be, generally symbolic of the figure that is being represented by the thing. If that makes any sense at all. What do you mean, Teresa? Do you have by a name? But we're just gonna wait for ads to finish over on Twitch, and then we'll do a couple of songs, friends. There are certain characters I just needed a name, and they got a random name at first. Like my character Skull Splitter. Much Vikings, such a barbarian. Teresa, what do you mean by do you have a by name? I'm not sure what you mean. I just rolled with that because it rolls off the tongue and sounds terrifying. Yeah. It's a little cheesy, Matty. It's a little cheesy. It does sound like it would be in like a Viking video game. It's a little bit cheesy, but it is fun. I'm never one to look down on cheese. We all love cheese a little bit. I'm a Skull Splitter. Where did they call you that? Were you splitting skulls? No, it was my mother's name. She was Agnes Skull Splitter. All right, friends. Let's get a couple of songs. Bear, you had a couple of songs that you had asked for. Oh, Bear's not in yet. Bear had a couple of songs that he had requested before. I literally have a scene which shows how she got her name. That's funny. That is funny. Very good. Poor guy had that happen too. Alright, let me make sure I didn't miss anyone. Alright, nope, we're all good. We could do Big Strong Man. Do you want to do it with the modified lyrics? If I can remember to do it in stream. Yeah, let's do Big Strong Man and then she literally just bumps him and goes, "Your skull shall be split." That's funny, Matty. Let's do Big Strong Man and then let's do Paddy's Green Shamrock Show. We'll do those two and call it a night. Do we want to use the modified lyrics? Okay, yes. So this is Big Strong. Now, if you've never heard Big Strong Man before, Big Strong Man is a very it's an interesting song about a big strong man named Brother Sylvester. Twitch is messing up on me now. I'm sorry, Teresa. It seems like it's been messing up on a few folks. And Bear has recommended a very fun and interesting change to the lyrics, which is something that is very common in Irish folk songs and in shanties. And so we're gonna see if I can remember it properly. I actually need to look at what the recommendations were. Saturn, hello, welcome in. So very glad that you could join us. Grab a seat. We're just about to do tavern songs. Now be warned, we don't sing well here in the tavern. We just sing because we enjoy it. Okay, so it's singers. Okay, he used to work in the tavern as a doorman, and now he wants to fight George. Okay. I think I can do it. We'll see. We'll see if I can manage to get it in. All right. Have you heard about the big strong man? He lived in a caravan. Have you heard about the Jeffrey Johnson fight? Oh Lord, one hell of a fight. You can take all the heavyweights you got, 'cause you got a lad who can beat the whole lot. Whole lot! He used to work at the tavern as a doorman, now he wants to fight George Foreman. That's my brother Sylvester. What's he got? He's got a row of 40 mammals on his chest. Big chest. He killed 50 cabin in the West. He knows no rest. Kind of man. Oh, God, I don't remember the tune. Damn it. I'm going to have to practice, Bear. I don't remember the tune. Oh, what an embarrassment. He knows no rest. He's a kind of a man, hellfire. Don't push, don't... Yeah, I don't remember the tune. Son of a bastard. Saturn Bibles. It's fine with me. First time here anyway. I just got done watching your Dirtman video. Is the Dirtman video still being recommended? That's very interesting. Well, Saturn, I am Castle. This is my tavern, and here we talk about myth and lore and tales of yore, and every now and again I read you all a bedtime story. That's what we were doing tonight. I was reading A Darkness in Sethanon, which is a part of a series we've been doing. And other than that, we tell a lot of stories from all over the world. And you found your way in here because you were seeking a story, and you stumbled through the portals into this tavern at the end of the world, where all stories eventually come to rest. Freezing in, last time I lost a life. I'm not having any freezing on my end, but it could be. Okay. Yeah, this part in the middle, I don't remember how it's sung, Bear. He knows no rest, kind of the man hellfire, don't push, don't shove, plenty of room for you and me. He's got an arm like a leg, and a fist that would sink a battleship, big ship. It takes Southern Army and the Navy to put the wind up, Sylvester. He thought he'd take a trip to Italy, he thought that he'd go by sea. He dived at the harbour in New York, and then swam like a man from Cork. He saw Louis Tweed in distress. He put a big ship. I don't remember this being the lyric. He put the big ship Louis T on his chest. He drank all the water in the sea, and he walked all the way to Italy. That's right, brother Sylvester. Oh. Yeah. He's got a row of 40 medals on his chest. Big chest. He killed all 50 chapmen in the West. He knows no rest, the kind of the man hellfire. Don't push, don't shove, plenty of room for you and me. He's got an arm like a leg, and a fist that would sink a battleship. It takes all the army and the navy to put the wind up, Sylvester. He thought he'd take a ship to old Japan. They brought out the big brass band. He played every instrument they got. What a lad, he played the whole lot. The old church bell will ring, the old church choir did sing, we'll sing. They all turned and wished him the best. To my big brother, Sylvester. That's right, brother Sylvester. He killed 50 chapmen in the West. No, that's right, that's my brother Sylvester. I'm so lost. It's been so long since I listened to this song. I thought I knew this song better than I do. He got a row of 40 medals on his chest. He killed 50 chapmen in the West. He knows no rest, kind of the man hellfire up, don't push, don't shove, plenty of room for you and me. He's got an arm like a leg, and a fist that would sink a battleship. It takes all the army and the navy to put the wind up, Sylvester. That's right, brother Sylvester. He's got a row of 40 medals on his chest, big chest. He killed 50 chapmen in the West. He knows no rest, kind of the man hellfire, don't push, but don't shove, plenty of room for you and me. He killed 50 men, that's true, he did. This is my fault, I suggested a lyric change. Now I've thrown a... It's perfectly alright, Bear, that was actually very fun, and it was very funny. You can request stories, Saturn. We do random readings and discussions on Sundays, before the lady reads. And then on Tuesday and Thursday, we have Tuesday is an adult-friendly book, and then Thursday is a family-friendly book. Right now we're going through the Harry Potter series. And then, I'm going to mute that because it's very loud. But if you want to vote on the next books that we do, or you want to vote on stories or short stories that will be read, you have to join the guild. The guild is linked in the bio. If you cannot get into the guild that way, any one of the barkeeps, which Ashley Lynn there is a barkeep, and she can help you get in. And if you can't, if you're still having trouble, you can message me and I'll help you get into the guild. I hope Quinthrith Bloodaxe is at least a better name overall. She was the hardest to name. Yeah, that's better. Again, you don't want to be too on the nose, but you do want it to be a little bit of a thing. It's a song about Cotton Hill. Alright, let's do Paddy's Green Shamrock Shore. Yeah, this is another one I haven't sung in a very long time, so I'm probably going to mess it up. Of course, Saturn. I'm glad that you like the stories enough that you want to join us. So there'll be a link inside of my beacon. Inside of the beacon, it'll say like beacons.ai or something. Inside of there, there'll be a link that says to the guild or to Gilded, and that should take you in. And again, if you can't get in, Ashley Lynn there, who's just above you in the chat, she can help you get in. Can we change the format of the week where we read one book both days, and then another book the next week? Quite possibly, Tyson. I don't know. We'd have to discuss it. I wasn't sure if the song you sung, the song that I just sang, kind of was "Big Strong Man," and I completely bumbled it. But I'm gonna practice because I actually do like that song. Some of my characters have nicknames like Garrick, Thor's Oak, Bjorn the Wild Bear. How interesting. If the tavern doesn't want to do it, I mean, it would be interesting to do. That's kind of what we do during readathons, though. So it wouldn't be too far out there, Tyson. You've never heard of Big Strong Man, Esther? It was sung by the Wolf Tones. It was sung by Carbon Leaf. Quite a few versions of it. It's pretty old. It's a good song. You should look it up. It's way better than what I did. What I did is not a good representation of the song. Definitely worth looking up. But yeah, Big Strong Man. My favorite version of it is by Carbon Leaf. But the Wolf Tones do a pretty good version of it as well. Alright, now we're going to do Paddy's Green Shamrock Shore, which is actually one of my favorite songs. Thank you for the stories, Castle. You are absolutely welcome, Lyoko. If you're off to bed, rest well, and may you rise tomorrow, ready to face the day, and may all the things that stand before you fall at your might. Alright, here we go. Paddy's Green Shamrock Shore this is the Young Dubliners version. And fare thee well to Ireland, the land of my native home. Breaks my heart for to see friends part, it is then the teardrops fall. On my way to America, will I ever see home once more? I'm leaving behind the one I love on Paddy's Green Shamrock Shore. The ship she lies an anchor, she's standing by the quay. May fortune bright shine down each night as we sail out over the sea. Many ships have been lost, many lives it cost on the journey that lies before. With a tear in my eye, I'm bidding goodbye to Paddy's Green Shamrock Shore. So fare thee well, my own true love, I'll think of you night and day. And first in my mind we'll find, although I am far away. No, I'll be alone, far away from home, I think of the good times once more, until the day I can make my way back to Paddy's Green Shamrock Shore. And now the ship is on the way, may heaven protect us all. With wind in our sails, we surely can't fail on the voyage to Baltimore. My parents and friends, they did wave till the end, till I could see them no more. And I took a chance, took one last glance at Paddy's green shamrock shore. And I took a chance, took one last glance at Paddy's green shamrock shore. I got temporarily banned from DMs. I wasn't being the best person during my first couple of months. But I changed. We're gonna have to wait on private DMs, but now I know. But I know how to do it now anyway. Yeah, you can also send me an email or a message through any of the other platforms, Saturn. Today's songs have been recorded in my tavern diary. Excellent. My favorite version is by Pat McKernan. That's your friend, isn't it, Bear? Pat McKernan? Yeah, Fëanor, the elf orc race in my story have last names like Blood Axe and Skull Splitter or Tree Spear. Yeah, if it makes sense within the story, then that's fine. Alright, Saturn, excellent. Well, that is going to be all for this evening, my friends. I think we will raid to share the love over on Twitch, but for everyone else, this is where we are going to end for the night. I want you all to know that I appreciate you who come in and spend your time here in the tavern. It means the world to us. Over on TikTok for Keith, Ritty, and Nexus, thank you all for the gifts. It is deeply appreciated. For anyone who became a supporter or who tipped the Tavern Keeper, thank you kindly. And to Destiny Jaeger, Destiny Jaeger and Esther, thank you for the subscriptions over on Twitch. It is deeply appreciated. Thank you kindly for the support. And for all... Yeah, Paddy's Green Shamrock Shore is actually one of my favourite songs of all time. I enjoy it very much. Good night, Esther. Rest well. TikTok is glitchy for me, but chat still works. Yeah, TikTok has been messing up, Twitch has been messing up, and YouTube has been royally messing up the last couple of days. So we're having issues all the way across the board. I believe so. I believe so, Matty. It's been a while since I've read the things, but yeah, I believe so. Hey, Nock. Hello. Welcome in. So very glad you weren't the end, but so glad you could join us. Thank you for the stories tonight, Castle. Always a pleasure, Molly. Always a pleasure. You guys, you are wonderful. Thank you so much. I could not ask for better patrons in a better tavern. You're all spectacular, and the lady and I appreciate everything that you guys do for and with us. So until the very next time that we gather here in the tavern, my friends, I will bid you all stay bloodthirsty. And I will see you next time. Well, good day and good night then. I'll see you next time, friends. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Steam thing. Oh my gosh. I was like, why does it? No. Now you have no. No. Why don't you play Spotify now?